All right. Well, thank you for taking the time to answer questions today, and welcome to the Plague.
Thank you for having me.
Let me just start by asking a little bit about the new album. Can you kind of give me kind of the background on how everything came together and like how the whole process, the writing and recording, everything might have changed from the previous album?
Well, it's been very different because we've suffered through a pandemic, and so of course that has affected everything. And songwriting, producing, arranging, and recording has been different this time. But if I rewind, I remember we had written four tracks actually. And that was about when the sort of the pandemic was about to break out, and we also we played those songs for a couple of labels at the time because there were changes at Nuclear Blast, our previous record company, and so we wanted to try our luck, and so we got several options, which was great, and that gave us some confidence, I think. And of course, after The Fire I Long For, which we got great reviews for, we had some confidence, and we started off with 4 tracks, and then we continued. So, and we wrote this album it took us 2 years to make it, and which means that we made a lot of music that didn't make it to the album, and these are the top-notch ones.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it kind of gave you some extra time to kind of really like sit with the songs and figure out exactly what was worth pursuing more.
Yeah, and I mean, compared to what people suffered through in the pandemic, it wasn't a huge sacrifice. You had to sort of step back and take some time and think about what do we want this to be, mm-hmm. in every sense. And so, yeah.
I think it turned out really great. Like I've been following you guys since their first album because I was a big Candlemass fan from way back then. So I've been very excited to see how you guys have developed. I was wondering how much Leif Edling had, how much input he had on this album, because it seems like he's been having less and less, and you guys have been kind of taking on more of your own songwriting yourselves.
Yes, The Fire I Long For was when we sort of took full control of the whole production, so to say. We've been very involved in everything since the beginning, mm-hmm. when it comes to sort of arranging the music and arranging Leif's music and so on, and so on. But this time we asked if he wanted to co-write with us. So we wrote. We had written sort of the core of the song Stockholm, me and Marcus, and we played it to Leif and asked if he wanted to write with us, and he did. So, and I think it turned out pretty great. And of course, he's always with us. Both in spirit and actually in real life as well, because Marcus has produced the Candlemass album sort of in parallel process to the AVATARIUM album for about 2 years. So I think they've affected us and the contact, of course. But if I'm sort of looking in the mirror here, of course I realize that working alongside Leif for many years now, I've been influenced by his songwriting, of course, and also mostly, I would say, influenced by his great integrity to focus on music and his preferences and his vision. And also he's extremely talented and gifted, of course, but that to have that drive and to focus on your vision is unique. He's a genius. So that, to learn from the best is not a bad thing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. One of my favorite songs on the album is actually Love Like Ours. And I thought it was a really interesting choice to open the album with. Can you talk a little bit about how that song came together and why you chose that to kind of start the album off?
Yeah, well, I think, it was one of the first songs we wrote together for this track, me and Marcus. And it started because the verses is like a nursery rhyme or a lullaby. It has that sort of soothing sort of rhythm. And I remember it was difficult to sort of work our way into the chorus. And quite soon we felt that, this should have a string arrangement. So Marcus, I think Marcus had some ideas, and he's been working with, because the track is featuring Svante Henriksson, who is a famous Swedish cello player. Mm. And so Marcus had been working with Svante earlier, and so he thought of Svante, and then he made a sort of basic arrangement and sent that to Svante of our sort of the core and the basics of the song "A Love Like Ours," and he had some rough sketches or ideas, and then we got this great arrangement that Svante wrote and sent to us quite early and on in the process. He was very quick. That was in the beginning of the pandemic, so everyone was a bit sitting at home, and so we were quite lucky to catch him in time, and he had time for us, and so on. And so, and we were pretty amazed by the sort of the rough demo, and he also, so we asked if he wanted to do a cello solo, which he did, and I think it's pretty impressive how that turned out. And I mean, it's very, very virtuous. and then I remember to get the pieces together, we had a different type of sort of solo, and So to get the bass line right, I remember I sang that bass line, and Marcus, would this be possible to? So it was very creative and open, and I'm glad you liked it, because it's my favorite track on the album as well.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
You guys have been incorporating a lot more like different instruments, piano and cello and whatnot over the years. I'm kind of curious, like, where you see like maybe going in the future. Are there any like ideas that and it's always hard to like predict the future, but are there any things that you could see maybe exploring in the future with AVATARIUM?
Well, there are many things in my mind, but I think we've been quite mindful about our heritage, and we are mindful about that. But I mean, but you also have to be in the present. You have to be mindful about yourself in the present. What am I influenced by, and what is ongoing in the present? Anything else would probably be promoting a false self. You have to be in contact with yourself, and so that's that makes it impossible to force the future. But I mean, since I love jazz, and I come from that background, and I think that's been quite obvious since the beginning. And I wouldn't mind sort of finding a fusion with some more jazz elements with a doom. I think that's a great way to go. But who knows?
Yeah. Is it difficult to put together the running order of the songs? Like, how do you guys arrange that? Like, how do you make that decision? Like, which songs go first, which one should go last?
Yeah, I think it is difficult because I mean, I love that form of sort of creating for an album, and you have that in mind in the process, of course. But also to be very clear that each song stands for itself. But that's also, it's very intriguing, I think, to finally to have material that you feel confident about and that you hopefully love yourself, and to put those pieces together. So I think in making this, that we've tried many orders before it came to the final placing of the songs. Yeah, but that's a nice part of the job.
Your sound has like really evolved over the years. It's interesting because I went back and if you listen to like the first album and then you listen to the new album, it's like, wow, it seems like quite a difference. But then if you listen to each album in order, like it makes total sense. Like, you see the progression from one to the next. I'm just kind of curious how important it is to you to have that progression, to always be, kind of moving forward, exploring new territory.
Mm-hmm. Probably more than I realized, but I'm so passionate about music, and it's just had to be, and also to be able to put down the amount of work it takes. You really have to be passionate, and then you have to be given creative freedom. Otherwise, it doesn't work for me. I have to have that. So it's not a choice. That's just how it has to be. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
One thing I wanted to talk about was the album artwork. I found it to be very interesting, and you guys have always had kind of a minimal but like really effective artwork on all your album covers. Can you tell me a little bit about what inspired the cover for the new album?
Yeah, I think this turned out extremely well. It's stylistic in a way that I love, but still it's that super clear reference to Doom, but and also of course I think that we asked Erik Rovanperä, who did our first and second album, and he said yes, luckily, and but there's this sort of Scandinavian sort of stylistic, very sort of minimalistic thing going on here. And I love that combination of the sort of the not so minimalistic Doom, because Doom is huge with its big riffs and heaviness. Mm-hmm. And to have those together, I think that's so cool. So yeah, I had the idea of, because when we knew that Death, Where's Your Sting would be the title track, of course I had the reference to fencing. It was like the sting and the fencer. So we talked to Erik about that. Would that be possible to and yeah, he thought so. And of course also the Scandinavian reference of sort of Bergman, that very iconic conversation with death. So I've come to meet you, and when I'm not ready. There's this reference, of course, in this song to Bergman here, even though it wasn't very obvious in the beginning. And also it's from the Corinthian letters, a death, where is thy sting? So there are many layers here of references. Yeah.
That's interesting. You mentioned Bergman. I didn't even make that connection, but yeah, that's really cool. Is that someone who's kind of been an influence on you at all, like just artistically, is in terms of the kind of the aesthetics?
Yeah, I think so. Even if on probably more on a subconscious level, because it's been in your sort of cultural reference on your life this way, I guess. So probably subconscious.
Yeah, he deals with so much with the existential ideas that you guys reference a lot to you. So that's pretty cool. One thing I wanted to ask about was the kind of stylized logo you have now, the A that came on the last album and it's on this one as well. How did that come about? Like, was that something that the artist just came up with and you guys really liked, or was that something you set out to, like, oh, we want to have a nice stylistic logo?
Yeah, I specifically asked for that, because then we discussed whether you need one or if it should be altered from albums, and it can. But I really we worked with an art director. His name is Erik Dagnell here in Stockholm, and so he created that, and we liked it a lot. So we wanted to keep it on this album as well, and so I think it suits the whole album.
Yeah. You mentioned moving labels. I'm kind of curious if you could talk a little bit more about the reason behind that, and how you're how happy you are with AFM so far. Like,
well, you have to call me again in like a year, and then we know more.
Right.
No, but they do a great job so far, and we've done the creative part here, and now they're doing their work, and we're working together. But we started. We had a great journey together with Nuclear Blast. So, but they went through some changes, and we were also in a sort of place where we wanted to sort of try our luck, and so we had, as I mentioned, we had different options, and we chose to go with AFM because the sort of the human connection, the contact felt good. It felt serious, and we felt that they're not only interested in selling washing powder here. They seem to like music, and that's needed. So let's get back in a year again, and we'll see. We'll evaluate if it's been good. Yeah.
I'm curious how, since restrictions are starting to ease a little bit, if you had a chance to do much in the way of live shows. I think you played maybe some festivals over the summer.
Yeah, we've been to Germany. Yeah.
Okay.
And we're going to Istanbul in 2 weeks.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that's going to be great. Of course, there's a Doom festival in Istanbul that we're playing, and then we have a European tour in April, May next year.
Okay.
So far that's what we know. Yeah, but we're we'll see. We're discussing different options. So yeah.
I always have to ask European bands, is there any chance you guys might make it over to the US? I know you haven't really had the opportunities in the past, but...
No, we haven't, unfortunately not. But I'm seeing how well Candlemass is doing. They're selling out venues, so and which is such a great thing, and it gives of course some hope for us to visit the States as well.
Yeah.
So let's hope that the ones that listen and read your work here, or your piece here, will be influenced and would want AVATARIUM to come. Yeah.
Would you like to do a tour with a non-metal band? Is there any bands that you could think of doing a tour with outside of that realm?
Yeah. I'm having this idea about it would be great to have either a connection with a jazz, some sort of jazz band or musicians, and to make that work.
Yeah.
It would be, because I mean the common factor would be a very, such as the jazz audience and the doom audience is a very sort of interested, musical and musically interested audience.
Yeah.
And I think they could both enjoy the music together and also enjoy hanging with each other. So that's, in my mind, that would be doable. Yeah, somehow.
Yeah, I always like to see those kind of tours where you kind of open up the audiences to like something maybe they haven't heard before or not as familiar with. That would be really cool.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you one more song about playing live. Is there any particular song that you guys that has kind of come to be like a song you have to play, like the one song that people kind of expect from AVATARIUM?
Yeah, that would be Moon Horse.
Moon Horse. Okay.
Yeah, which is pretty amazing. It was our first single, and it's 9 minutes long, and which is so great, and gave me, sort of kickstarted my sort of musical life in doom. Okay, this is okay in this context. 9 minutes of total focus.
Yeah.
But I see how that feels a bit. It feels mandatory in a positive way. I see how that song moves people when we play it. So it's great to have that song. Yeah, I think it's. I mean, I'm not objective here, but I think it's one of Leif's greatest creations. So I think he thinks so too. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the first one I heard when I first heard AVATARIUM, and yeah, that's always stuck with me. It's a pretty classic track. It kind of eats up a lot of your set time, though. You always have 9 minutes. You have to count.
Yeah, and that's not the only sort of 9-10 minutes long song. It eats up a lot of the set. Yeah.
My final question is just one I've been asking everybody. I'm just curious, if you had to pick a single Black Sabbath album as your favorite, which would it be and why?
Oi, I'm the wrong person to ask. You have to call Leif.
I'm sure he would have an opinion on that.
He would have an opinion about what print, because he's a collector and he has everything, so he could give you a specific print that you should use. So I'm wrong person. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's all the questions I got. I appreciate you taking the time to answer them, and have fun in Istanbul. That should be exciting.
Thank you, and thank you very much for your interest in our music. Great talking to you.
Good luck with the album release, and hopefully you'll make it over to Seattle sometime.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Yeah. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.